Congresswoman Harriet Hagman says that they're uncovering a layer after layer of fraud in Minnesota with millions in taxpayer dollars being misused. But here's what nobody's talking about. The money trail that leads from welfare recipients straight to overseas wire transfers. And when you follow that money, you discover something that changes everything about this investigation. Now, what's this about? Well, it's not just about Minnesota anymore. We're talking about a potential nationwide network of benefit fraud that could be costing you thousands in taxpayer dollars every single year. Your community could be next. It's probably happening in your community. The investigation is expanded to California, where Dr. Oz is now working with federal prosecutors to expose what they're calling foreign mafia operations taking over the system. Meanwhile, the largest refugee resettlement NGO in the country, funded by your tax dollars, is directly connected to organizations that help people sign up for government benefits. This could be the tip of the iceberg that reaches into every single state. Speaking of things that aren't working the way they should, your liver might be trying to tell you something. So if you're like me, you're getting to that age where your body just feels sluggish and off all the time, then listen up. Recently, I wasn't feeling great, decided to call my friend Dr. Josh for some help. I told him what was going on, and his response shocked me. He said that most people don't realize their liver processes over 500 functions daily. And when it's overloaded, everything suffers, and that's why Up Wellness created Ultra Liver to support your body's natural detox processes and help you feel energized again. Just like we need to clean up the fraud in our government system, sometimes our bodies need help cleaning up too. You can take action now at the link in the description. But here's where this story gets really interesting. The supposed mastermind behind the $250 million fraud scheme, it's not who you think. Federal officials revealed that Amy Bach, a white woman, was actually the one orchestrating the massive scam. So while everyone was focused on Somali immigrants, the real fraud was being run by someone completely different. So this raises some serious questions about who else might be involved. Jim DeBank, another welfare program, another fraud. HUD Secretary Turner, 2024, Biden admin paid 5.8 out of 50 billion questionable payments, 11.6% to 29,000 dead people and 9,400 non-citizens. When is enough enough? Government is not meant to provide, only to protect life and liberty and the rights of citizens. Here we have Housing Secretary Scott Turner confirming the Democrats were using your tax dollars to bankroll housing for illegal immigrants. Over $5 billion in payment errors. Taxpayer money sent to housing for 30,000 dead people.
They insured mortgages. And we eliminated non-permanent residence eligibility for FHA insured mortgages. And we are auditing public housing authorities to ensure taxpayer dollars don't support illegal aliens. American dollars should benefit American citizens and American citizens only. By focusing on our core mission, HUD provided a pathway for home ownership and supported housing affordability for more than 1 million Americans through FHA and Ginnie Mae. We also take stewardship very seriously, so we're cracking down on waste and fraud and abuse. Our Office of the Chief Financial Officer uncovered more than $5 billion in potential payment errors, over $50 billion in total rental assistance for the fiscal year 2024. And that includes money that went to nearly 30,000 dead people. That is ludicrous. It's ridiculous to even think or talk in such a way. It's a violation of our sacred trust to American taxpayers, and it has to end, and it will.
The HUD fraud revelation sets the stage for even bigger scandal that's brewing in Minnesota. We're going to dive deeper now. Trump HUD Secretary Scott Turner, jaw-dropping betrayal by the Democrats, $5 billion in payment errors, over $50 billion in rental assistance in 2024 alone, 30,000 dead people, government-backed mortgages went to non-citizens. It's only the tip of the iceberg. Here's what's happening in Minnesota. We've been tracking this for weeks now. Dr. Oz, CMS, if you thought the fraud was out of control in Minnesota, wait until you learn about what's happening in California.
I'm here in Los Angeles at the U.S. Attorney's Office. We're talking about fraud. This place has become one of the epicenters for fraud, waste, and abuse in America. $3.5 billion just here in Los Angeles County, we think, around hospice and home health care. Then you add in all the other things like they have in Minnesota, but in California scale, it's huge.
And what we have witnessed is a 7-fold increase in hospice in LA County. 7-fold. That doesn't happen naturally. There are not 7 times more deaths in LA County than there were 5 years ago. These fraudsters, and these do tend to be foreign influences. These are Russian Armenian gangs, mafia, that are leading a lot of these efforts, we believe, have been able to corrupt and work with doctors who are willing to lie, to use that MD degree as a license to kill.
A lot of it's driven by foreigners who came to Los Angeles, very different culture, Russian Armenian groups, and this mafia seems to have taken over the system. They've corrupted doctors, they've normalized fraud so that everyone sort of expects it, but the magnitude of it is so great that we have to take it on aggressively. It's a focus area for CMS, and this administration under President Trump is not going to tolerate taxpayer dollars being stolen because people aren't paying attention anymore. We're focused on this.
Dr. Oz on the case. He's like, if you think what happened in Minnesota, put it at the California scale. The Minnesota connection is about to get very personal. We're talking about specific officials who may have known about the massive fraud schemes. Not only did Amy Bach, the woman behind the $250 million Minnesota Somali fraud scandal, confirm Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison knew about the fraud taking place, but AG Keith Ellison met with Somali fraudsters who are under investigation by the FBI.
And a Fox News alert also in Minnesota, the convicted ringleader of one of the state's biggest fraud schemes is speaking to Fox News from behind bars. Now, she believes that the scam was no surprise to local Democratic leaders, and she's naming names. She spoke to Alexis McAdams. Hi, Alexis.
Hey, Dana. Yeah, so everywhere you look in the state of Minnesota, right, there seems to be another fraud scam. So this one involves Amy Bach. She's a Minnesota woman convicted of fraud for taking taxpayer money that was meant to feed hungry kids. But listen to this. Bach tells me the real issue here is the state of Minnesota, which she says kept giving scammers your taxpayer money even after they were flagged as fraudsters.
I have to believe that the governor's office and Keith Ellison's office were aware of this. They've said they were involved in helping the FBI. They've said they were made aware, but apparently I'm scary, so they couldn't do anything.
So Bach ran this nonprofit called Feeding Our Future. You might have heard of it. It was one of dozens convicted in this $250 million scam. You can see her mugshot there. Prosecutors say this group set up sham restaurants. They pretended they were making these meals. They got paid by the state for those meals, but they just pocketed the cash. Bach, who's looking at 30 years behind bars, tells me the state signed off on those businesses, not her.
It all went through a process. They were all approved. They were all paid by the state, yet all the fingers are being pointed at me.
And it's not just Bach. Whistleblowers told a congressional committee Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison there ignored warnings for years as millions of dollars and millions were stolen on their watch. Congress is investigating a long list of massive fraud schemes in the state. It's hard to keep up. Prosecutors say it's led to at least $9 billion in fraud, Dana, and counting. Congress also asking why the attorney general there would meet with a group of Somali fraudsters, which were under FBI investigation in 2021. The group can be heard in an audio clip given to us by Bach's lawyer, offering to donate to his campaign if he can help them get their funding flowing again. Ellison denies any wrongdoing here. He slammed Bach in a statement to Fox, calling her a liar, a manipulator, adding now she's on a media tour to deflect her guilt onto others instead of finally taking responsibility for this fraud scheme that she ran. So we reach out to Governor Walz.
Of course, that's how they are going to respond now. It's not just about knowing. We're talking about direct meetings between top officials and people actively under FBI investigation. Back in 2019, Somali Rep Ilhan Omar's household net worth, as you know, was zero. Now it's up to $30 million. The value of her husband's company, Rose Lake Capital, has increased to $25 million. I mean, the only way you can account for that is all that money flowing out of her district right under her nose and being laundered through her husband's firm, allegedly.
Report.
In 2019, back in 2019, her household income, her household net worth has gone up from $0 to $30 million, and the value of her husband's company, Roselake Capital, has gone from some small amount of money up to $25 million. So apparently, it really does pay to get into politics.
Well, I don't know what she's doing, but I suspect that it's not legal. Who knows? You don't see that kind of change. I mean, she reported on her disclosures around here about a $65,000 net worth just a couple of years back. And now, like you point out, Charlie, she's reporting it's $30 million. Look, Ilhan Omar is a hateful, racist anti-Semite who goes on national TV and plays the victim and goes to the University of Minnesota campus and essentially encourages violence on Jewish students. This needs to be investigated. She was right at the center of the Somali fraudster operation called Feeding Our Future, the $250 million fraud case, largest pandemic fraud case in the country. Those are her people, and they're the ones that donated to her campaign. Right. So,
those are her people. She wrote the bill. Here's what gets more interesting. While the fraud was happening, one particular congresswoman's wealth exploded. The whole crew is getting deported, and Tim Walz is going down. No. Oh, that was a great one right there. Social media reaction fierce, but let's get the hard evidence that's driving the investigation. Deport her and her brother ASAP. Use the money on our debt. Based on the body language of Ilhan Omar, she's worried. James Comer. There's no way referring to how her net worth went from $30 million in a year. Trump wants her investigated right now. Her husband's consultant firm went from $0 to $25 million.
Into your net worth, you and your husband's net worth. They're claiming that it's risen rapidly. What's your response to what they're saying? Do you think they'll find anything in their investigation into your net worth?
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar avoiding questions about her net worth that has risen astronomically during her time in Congress. President Trump wants answers. Writing on Truth Social, quote, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is worth over $30 million. There is no way such wealth could have been accumulated legally while being paid the salary of a politician. She should be investigated for financial and political crimes, and that investigation should start now. Saturday Night America anchor Kayleigh McEnany joins me now. It is amazing. When she started in 2019, she had a negative net worth. Her personal household net worth has gone from negative to $30 million, and her husband's Rose Lake Capital firm, a consulting firm, has gone from just dollars up to $25 million in value.
These aren't random accusations. Federal investigators are asking the same questions about the unexplained wealth. Follow the money. Congress launching an investigation into Representative Ilhan Omar's skyrocketing net worth after reports of a 3,500% increase. The probe comes as her husband's business partner, William Haler, is back in the spotlight after settling multiple lawsuits over claims. Questions swirl over Omar's net worth. Business partner has history of fraud allegations. Well, what do you know? Well, the numbers are staggering. Now we're seeing official congressional oversight get involved. Oversight is looking into Omar's financial disclosures. How did two companies owned by her husband skyrocket in wealth in 1 year? Can anyone turn $1,000 into $30 million in a year? It's ridiculous. We all deserve answers. It's the big question now being investigated by House Oversight James Comer, weighing in with the specific figures that will blow your mind. Ilhan Omar, Julie Donuts writes, installed foreign terrorists. She committed so many crimes. She was installed by voter fraud and was put there to help infiltrate America from within. Just a matter of time, Omar. Let's take a look at this.
Court showdown to unravel why Ilhan Omar's net worth skyrocketed up to $30 million. She, of course, also represents parts of Minneapolis, and so that's why it makes this particular story even that much more unique and pertinent today. Obviously, red flags were raised after the Minnesota Democrat had a modest income last year and now is reporting about $30 million in assets. Representative James Comer is digging in for a long legal battle in order to get to the bottom of all of this. Two companies that Representative Omar's husband has a stake in are of specific concern here after they both posted sudden surges in assets for the couple. Brian, something just doesn't smell right here on its face. In general, question for you, you have a little bit more expertise, but is being a lawmaker on Capitol Hill these days also just a good business move, not a good political move?
Well, you know, they always talk about insider trading and the wealth that's accumulated from people in a government position. Let me tell you where a lot of that insider trading would happen. It wouldn't be from a congressional standpoint, because a lot of times those individuals like Ilhan Omar aren't involved in contracts that the government might pick up or give out to the public sector. Now, people that are on committees, people that are in appropriations or any other high-ranking chairman, those are the guys that know the contracts that are going out for in particular industries. Now, Ilhan Omar, I don't really know much about how she gained her wealth, but I do know we've seen the fraud that has taken place within her community. And without a doubt, I would imagine some of that money has been funneled through, just like we saw, Terrence, on USAID. Same thing. A lot of this money that was going to these NGOs were going back into Democrat pockets.
Of course it was. Of course it was. The NGOs going through the back door into the Democrat pockets. That's what I've been saying. Remember, it's not just about one person. Investigators are connecting the dots between multiple fraud schemes across different states. Here is James Comer's reaction. Growing questions surrounding Omar and her husband, how they built millions in wealth in such a short span. Reports suggest her net worth went from near zero to $6 to $30 million within a year. Oversight is looking into it. Here is Jesse Waters' program.
Republicans turning the heat up on Ilhan Omar. They want to know how she got all that money.
What your response is to the Oversight Committee launching an investigation into your net worth, you and your husband's net worth. They're claiming that it's risen rapidly. What's your response to what they're saying?
House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. All right, Mr. Comer, you were in banking before politics, right? So she suddenly, in 1 year, after being worth a few $1,000s, is now worth $30 million. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, and the way the financial disclosure forms are, there's a big variation. But here's what we know: she went from zero to anywhere between $6 and $30 million in a year. Now, why is that relevant? First of all, I don't know many people that go from 0 to 30 without having a legitimate business. Her husband is in some type of finance business, but we don't know what it is. It doesn't appear to be private equity. It doesn't appear to be venture capital. So we just have questions. What exactly is the business that you're involved in? It was kind of like the same questions we asked Hunter Biden that he never could answer. But then, you know, she won't answer any questions. The Ethics Committee is supposed to investigate members. We're not supposed to investigate individual members, but this business is in her husband's name. So we can investigate her husband, and we are going to do that because we're, as you know, in the middle of this Minnesota welfare fraud. And there's been a lot of accusations about a circle of influential Somali Americans that are benefiting from these financial scams in Minnesota. Her name is on the list. Now, she's going to get due process. I don't know if she's guilty, but what I know is she went from 0 to anywhere between $6 and $30 million in a year, and she won't even answer a simple question like you saw there. What did you do?
I mean, it looks very suspicious when you have millions of the Somali cash just flying all over Minneapolis with no scrutiny whatsoever. Wasn't there also a vineyard involved here? The husband's involved in the wine business?
Yeah. You know, there's a thing called money laundering where people have businesses and they deposit, lots of cash. Again, I'm not accusing them of any wrongdoing, but she should answer a simple question. If any member of Congress is asked what business their family's involved in, I've never seen one fail to answer it. That's not a hard question. My husband has a private equity firm and he's done exceptionally well in the last 12 months. She won't answer that question. And everybody in America suspects foul play here. Right. And again, we're going to find out. It's not going to be hard to figure out what business he's in and where the money came from. So that's going to be a central part of our entire Minnesota fraud investigation, because she is the leader in Congress, in the district, in the congressional district where the overwhelming majority of the welfare fraud is taking place. Her name, as well as the Attorney General Keith Ellison's name, had been mentioned as people of interest. I'll put it like that, Jesse. So we're gonna follow through on this, and I think she's gonna have some difficult questions to answer.
All right. Well, if Omar starts painting and selling those pieces of art, then I think we're on to something. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Massive fraud bust on the West Coast.
You know, it all happened in her district. In 90% of the crimes committed by her own community. She's the congresswoman that sits at the top in that district. So I'd like to know how she can walk around that district and be completely blind to all the wealth that is suddenly pouring in. If she's going to social functions or fundraisers, all of a sudden people flush with cash. She has no idea. Oh no, people talk, people whisper. Ilhan Omar knows everything. Now, I don't know if she could be hauled before the committee. Maybe she should. I'm not sure if it works that way. If a congressperson can be hauled in front of a committee for these crimes that are taking place in Minnesota, there's got to be, I'm sure there's a mechanism for handling it with congresspeople. The pattern is becoming clear. This is a coordinated system of benefit fraud that spans multiple programs. We have this. Just remember, this goes hand in hand in DeKalb County School District. They go after both you, and you solve many money laundering problems. DeKalb has a foundation collecting donations, but the mailbox is at a UPS store. A UPS store. Minnesota was just beginning. Dr. Oz and federal prosecutors are uncovering even bigger operation in California. Medicaid fraud, every state taxpayer funds. Refugees, Medicare, Medicaid, they get the benefits, daycare benefits. Now we have businesses collecting millions. And like this, let's see, draft talks about scam daycare benefits. What is this, Tor said? I'm not sure what the Tor said is, but here's Rand Paul. This must stop now. My bill will audit all welfare programs and include clawbacks from states allowing this fraud. But first, everyone needs to know. This week, the Senate will vote to continue over $5 billion for refugee welfare. I will try to force an amendment. The scope is national organized groups systematically exploiting refugee resettlement programs for massive profits. Wall Street Apes writes, the largest refugee resettlement NGO in the country is taxpayer funded and is giving money to the Somali American Community Center. The Somali American Community Center building is filled with businesses that sign up refugees for government benefits.
Congress is trying to give $5 billion of your money for refugee resettlement programs, and then it ends up in places like
this. This is the International Rescue Committee, the largest refugee NGO in the country. They get the government funds and subcontract the work out to places like
this. This is the Somali American Community Center. It receives grants from the IRC in order to help refugees resettle in America.
But when we went in, we found this.
An almost completely abandoned retail space which hasn't filed taxes in almost 10 years.
Where almost every business is focused on getting refugees on taxpayer-funded welfare programs.
And that is how the largest refugee city in the country is funded.
And how over 87% of Somali immigrants end up on taxpayer-funded public assistance.
We spent 3 days in Little Somalia in Atlanta, Georgia.
The largest refugee center in the entire country. And this is what we found.
Oh, man. Those Somalis got a good network going, don't they? It goes beyond individual cases. We're looking at what appears to be organized crime networks operating with taxpayer funding. Dr. Oz has teamed up with U.S. Attorney SL to investigate the fraud in California. Driven by foreigners, Russians, and Armenians, the mafia system has taken over the system. The evidence is mounting from multiple sources. Now congressional leaders are demanding accountability for the abuse. This is the face of a person who federal officials say was behind the organization bilking U.S. taxpayer dollars. The Somali immigrant scammers. This is the face of the person behind all this talk. Let's check this out.
They found the leader of the Somali scammers, and you won't believe this. The person who defrauded the United States government out of $250 million. Mastermind the whole scheme, right? Wait for this, right? This is the leader of the Somali scammers. Fork found in fucking kitchen. Understand, this is Amy Bach. She's a white woman. So we passed that, right? She's a white woman. This is Amy Bach, who made false claims to the United States government in order to gain $250 million. With claims saying that she was going to feed hungry children. So the leader of the Somali scammers is not even Somalian. Now, as you know, in the United States of America, the largest domestic terrorist group in America is not immigrants, it's white people.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that. Is that where you're going to end up with that? No, the point here is that you have a white woman at the top. Who else knows in that circle, in her community? That's why the fingers are pointing at walls. Here's Representative Harriet Hageman. We're uncovering layer after layer of fraud in Minnesota. Millions in taxpayer dollars being misused, officials ignoring it, while hardworking Americans pay the price.
We could say that there were many red flags. These weren't red flags. These were neon flashing signs. These were fireworks. There were so many signs about the fact that this kind of fraud was going on, especially when you take into consideration what was just reported about the millions of dollars being flown out of Minnesota, out of the Minneapolis airport to Somalia. Over 80% of the Somalia households receive some form of public assistance. Many of them are on welfare. So your first question is, if they're on welfare, how are they getting millions of dollars to send back to the homeland? Number one. Number two, if they're on welfare, why do they need childcare? They're not working outside of the home. Why would there be this number of Somalia childcare centers? I mean, you can go step by step by step as you peel this onion, and you realize that there was layer after layer after layer after layer of fraud. And everybody in the state of Minnesota that was responsible for actually ensuring that this money was appropriately spent basically said, well, I don't know. It never occurred to me that there could be fraud here. You think about it and you just know that the level of corruption here is probably one of the largest frauds that has ever been perpetrated against the American taxpayer and the state taxpayers in Minnesota.
So she put it perfectly. These were not red flags. They were fireworks. Over 80% of Somali households receive public assistance, yet millions of dollars are being flown from Minneapolis airports to Somalia. If they were on welfare, where's the money coming from? And why are there so many child care centers if people aren't working? The math just simply does not add up. The Minnesota fraud investigation is now exposing a web of corruption that reaches far beyond what anyone initially imagined. From welfare fraud overseas, money transfers from NGOs facilitating benefit signups to mastermind schemes worth hundreds of millions, the story reveals how easy it is to game the system when nobody's watching. The question isn't whether the fraud is happening in other states. The question is how long it's been happening and how deeply it really goes. Do you think your state could be next? And hey, while you're thinking about that, check out the Next News merch shop.
The system controls information. Information control is power. I want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.